So let's take a look at the 941. Oh, how do they deposit? Okay, so there are, most businesses will deposit, okay, most businesses will deposit electronically these days. They have to set up an account through, it's called EFTPS, Electronic Funds Transfer Payment System, I think. Sounds good. So you set up an account with them and then they'll just automatically withdraw the funds. You still have to tell them how much to withdraw, right? Or the old way of doing it was you would actually go to the bank, physically go to the bank with the deposit on the due date, and then the bank would collect it and send them the money into Treasury for you. I don't think a whole lot of places do that anymore. If they do, it's still probably going to be electronically, but through the bank rather than directly through the IRS. But that's how most institutions will get it. If you make the payment on a quarterly basis, then, so if you make it on a monthly basis or more frequently than that, you've got to use this electronic. If you're making it on a quarterly basis with the 941, you can send in a check, or on an annual basis, you can send in a check. But again, that's not going to be that many businesses, right? Okay, that's pretty small. Let's make it bigger. All right, so this is what a 941 looks like. And you can see it doesn't really have a year, just 2000 something, unless they change something on the 941, which I guess they do. There were a lot of changes to the 941s during COVID. I don't know if you recall, during COVID, there were all sorts of special incentives and things for businesses and payroll holidays and all sorts of stuff. So this thing got way complicated. It's not as complicated as it used to be. And for the most part, most of this information, you're going to see a bunch of credits and things on here. You don't have to worry about those, okay? What we're concerned with learning here is how to accurately enter how much has been withheld and how much is owed and reconcile those two, okay? There is one part on this form, that's a little bit, is that fuzzy or is that just me? There is one part on this form that trips up a lot of students, and I'm going to go through that with you in detail on how to figure that out. Okay, so the top of the form is obviously all just the identifying information, name, all that, EIN, right up at the top, employer identification number, and then what quarter are you reporting for? So this is going to apply to all the quarters here. So in this case, it's the first quarter, January, February, and March. So this would obviously be due by April 30th, this particular form. Now you're going to see the first question that they ask is how many employees did you have? Well, how many employees received wages, tips, or other compensation during a particular pay period? They're just gathering information here, general information, I think, about employers. So in this case, during the pay period of March 12th, that included March 12th, not saying that you paid them on March 12th, because your pay periods who knows what your schedule is. But during the pay period that included March 12th, how many employees were on your payroll, received paychecks during that time? They want to know what the number is, okay? So, and you can see there's one for each of the quarters here, and they give you the date. So for this company, they had 26 employees. Next question, wages, tips, and other compensation. How much did you pay them? This would be taxable wages, amounts that were taxable. We're going to go through in the future some of those pre-tax deductions that would reduce our gross wages. This is how much was taxable, how much was subject to income tax withholding. Next line is federal income tax withholding. Now, right now, in Chapter 3, you don't have to do any calculations for that because we haven't covered that yet. But in chapter 4, you are going to have to do some calculations. So, how much in total, this is for all the employees during that quarter. Okay? How much income tax withholding did you withhold from their checks in total? All right, whoops. Go back. Next up, so there's line 4, if no wages, tips, or other compensation are subject to Social Security or Medicare tax, check this and go to line 6. We're not going to deal with that because we need to calculate what the Social Security and Medicare taxes are. So, line 5, and you can see there's several parts to line 5. So there's 5A, 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 5B, 5C, 5D. The ones that we're mainly concerned about in your problems are going to be the first one. We're not going to deal with sick leave wages or qualified family leave wages. We're not going to do anything with that. Taxable Social Security tips, you may have a problem that includes the Social Security tips. Taxable Medicare wages and tips, and then additional Medicare tax withholding. Now, this is kind of weird, and I'm not exactly sure why they do it this way, but they separate out the Social Security wages and Social Security tips. Well, I guess it's because it matches what's on the W-2. So these two are separate lines. So if there are tips that were subject to Social Security tax, they would be listed here, but they wouldn't be listed up here with the wages. They're going to be separated out. But for Medicare purposes, we're combining both of them. Now you can see how, if you had employees who exceeded the Social Security wage base during this quarter, those wages would not be included in there. So these numbers could be different. This number could be different from this number, could be different from this number. This is the taxable additional Medicare tax. Again, that's only going to be applied to wages over $200,000. That hit over $200,000 during this quarter. Okay, not for the whole year, but only during that applied during this quarter. Does that make sense? We're only talking about that. Okay. So, excuse me. You can see here are tax rates. Now it's the full tax rate. These are 1.24%, 2.9%. Those are both halves. So that encompasses both the employer's portion and the employee's portion. So within here, this column is for the wages that are subject to these taxes. This is the calculation of the tax. This is our base. This is our rate. This is our tax. Okay? So, but this is going to encompass both halves of those taxes. So both the employer's portion and the employee's portion. So in column 2 here, it's going to include the amounts that were withheld, but then also the amounts that the employer owes. Oh, come back. What am I looking at here? All right. This is kind of weird because they've got it divided up. The second half of this same page. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up a 941. That one's for 2024. Let's see if I can find a 2023. There we go. No, that's 2024. Oh, come on. This is the IRS website, by the way. Find forms and instructions. Current forms, I want prior year. Here we go. 941. Oh, that's 2022. 2018. I don't need 2018. All right, well, hopefully this isn't much different. Hopefully nothing's really changed. But. All right, so we've got these are the amounts that we were just talking about. Actually, it did change, didn't it? Because they don't have for 2024, it doesn't have those two lines. These qualified sick leave wages and qualified family leave wages. So let me see what we got. 2023 form 921. Okay, it says 2023. Hey, there we go. All right. Just a little bit easier to see. Okay, so we've got, and you have to read these. You have to read the instructions on these lines. All the instructions, the calculation instructions, are here on the form. You just have to read it. Okay. So we've got our taxable wages that are subject to these specific taxes over here, multiplied by our rate to arrive at our tax liability there for Social Security and Medicare taxes. And then line 5E, total Social Security and Medicare taxes, add column 2 from all of these. Add it all up and pop it there on line 5E. So those are the total amounts of Social Security and Medicare taxes, including additional Medicare taxes that would have been collected and calculated that the company owes. All right, we don't need this 5F. Don't worry about that, unreported tips. But on line 6, we're going to have to total up what we had on line 3. So line 3, we'll do 100,000 here. We'll say we withheld $20,000 of income taxes. We'll say it's still 100,000. This makes it easier to. And yes, you would put cents in there, but I'm not going to bother with it. Wages and tips. In this case, it's a simpler calculation. I'm not going to make those any different. So we've got federal income taxes withheld here, Social Security taxes withheld and amounts owed by the company, Medicare taxes same, no additional Medicare tax in this case. We're going to total these two up. So what do we have here? 15,300. Yep, that makes sense. 15.3%. Nothing there. Total tax before adjustments. Well, it says add lines 3, 20,000, 5E, 15,300, and 5F. We have nothing in line 5F, so we're not going to add anything there. So 35,300. All right. This is the part that confuses a lot of students. So we've calculated what we owe. Now we've got to figure out as well what we paid. We may not have paid $35,300. Oftentimes the amount that's deposited is off by just a few cents because percentages are weird, right? What we're doing here is we're calculating the tax based on the total amount that was paid. But when we calculated how much to withhold every pay period, it was based on each pay period, and then we sent the money in. Those two could be different. Chances are they're not different by a whole lot, but oftentimes they are different just because of the weirdness of calculating those percentages in two different ways. Does that make sense mathematically? Okay, so what happens when you are just off by a few cents is you have to make an adjustment to what you owe so that it matches what you paid. So for the sake of argument, let's just say that we actually paid, let's see, down here is where we go into what we paid. So let's say we were a monthly scheduled depositor, and so the total was $35,300. 11,766.67. That's good. That's a good example. So each month, and obviously these won't necessarily always be the same, right? In our case, it's a pretty simple example. 35,301. That's how much we deposited. We deposited a penny more than what we actually owed. But the IRS says just change then what you owed by that penny. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add a penny. I don't need the decimal, I guess, but so that when we get down, and we're not going to, there's no adjustment for sick pay, no adjustment for life insurance. Total taxes after adjustments. Combine line 6 through 9. All right, 300. Now we owe 35,301 penny. Matches what we paid. We're not going to do anything here with the qualified small business, non-refundable portion, none of that. I'm not going to put anything in there. No credits. Remember I said that you're going to see a lot of credits on here, but we're not going to do anything with the credits until we get to line 12. Total taxes after adjustments and non-refundable credits. We don't have any adjustments, we don't have any non-refundable credits. So subtract line 11G, which was the total of all of our adjustments and credits, from line 10. Well, 0 from that is just the same. So 35,300.01. Total deposits from this quarter. And it says right there. So total deposits from this quarter, including overpayments applied from a prior quarter and overpayments applied, so we don't have anything that filled in the current quarter. We did our calculation of our total, the total amounts that we deposited down here, 35, 1. Those two have to match. Line 12 and line 13A have to match. That's what this line is for, is to make sure they match. So if it's just because of rounding and those percentages and it getting weird because it's a different, you'll get a slightly different result, that's what that amount is. This could be a negative number. It could be negative, it could be positive. If it's more than about 25 cents, there's probably a mistake somewhere. Because that's not really a rounding. I mean, I suppose it could be a little bit more than that, but for the most part, you would just see a few cents. All right, we're gonna go through this a little bit more on Thursday. Okay, I just wanted to give you a quick run through. These are, because we're also gonna show, I also wanna show you, well, maybe I'll pull it up right now so you can see it. There's another form that attaches to this 941. This is for semi-weekly scheduled depositors. You'll see on the 941 itself, there were some sections here. So if line 12 on this return is less than 2,500, so you didn't owe more than 2,500 during the quarter, you can check this box. And that says you can go ahead and pay this then with this return. If you check this box, monthly schedule depositor, you should have paid on that monthly schedule by the middle of the following month. If you were a semi-weekly schedule depositor, check this box, and it says to fill out complete Schedule B. This is what Schedule B is. On Schedule B, you see we've got a spot for the EIN again, and the business name, what quarter it pertains to, what the calendar year is, because this isn't necessarily particular to any year. You can use it in multiple years. And then what they want down here is the date that you incurred the liability. This is where they will check to see that you paid on time. So if you were a semi-weekly depositor and you incurred a liability on the 13th, but you didn't pay until the 21st, you were late, and they can calculate then what you owe for a penalty. Okay, we'll go through this a little bit more on Thursday, do some more detail on it. You do have a problem in your homework. I posted a video explaining as well. Where is it here? It's in one of the announcements. I think it might be in the, here you go, homework help. Form 941, fractions of cents. So this is in the announcements. You can watch this video as well. I made this summer to kind of help. I think it's also listed under the lecture videos, but under it's not listed under 2024. I should copy it to 2024. I don't know why I put it in 2023. But it's there for you to help out, okay? Questions? All right. Have a great afternoon.